Let's be real, if cameras had been on you when you were a teenager, would you still have a job right now? Probably not. Yet we act shocked when we see celebrities like Britney Spears or Justin Bieber or Amanda Bynes spiraling in public. And honestly, we can't stop watching. Why is that? Or is it because their chaos is just a louder version of our own? Welcome to Rebuild Different, the podcast where we stop running from the mess and start learning from it. I'm Epiphany Page. Give yourself grace and rebuild from the inside out, like we're all trying to do out here. Here's a little tidbit for you. Did you guys know that constant stress, like living under public scrutiny, can actually shrink parts of the brain, your limbic system, that is responsible for regulating emotion? That's why these young stars make choices that seem reckless to us. But it's not just them, because we know stress makes us all act out of character. That meltdown at work, that snapping on somebody that you love, or that spiral that you just can't seem to explain, sometimes it's stress and not who you really are. We laugh, we gossip, we shake our heads, we definitely be texting each other in the group chat about it. But let's be real, we're hooked. And not just because it's entertaining, because it's projection. Watching Britney Spears shave her head or watching Justin Bieber act out gave us something to point at and say, oh, well, at least my life isn't that messy. At least I wouldn't do that. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us, and you're lying if you say that you're not part of this group, have experienced our own major crash out and meltdown. Theirs were just televised. And ours happened in a kitchen or in a text thread or somebody's mama's basement. Here's the truth. None of us would have survived having our teen years filmed. When I was a teenager, I distinctly remember running from the cops and hiding from the woods because I had a Bud Light in my hand and I was not supposed to be drinking. Sorry, Mom. Those stars never got to make mistakes privately. Every awkward moment, every rebellion, every heartbreak, it was a headline. Could you imagine what that would feel like? All to say is, I just think that we all need to do a better job of giving each other grace and stop holding other humans to these impossible standards that we can't meet on our own. And I think that's where your growth can really start. I know it's where mine did. I had to get super real about who I was and what I was doing and how I was acting, and I decided to make a change because I was tired. So tired. And I'm sure some of you guys might be tired too. We expect perfection from them because they're talented or wealthy, but as we've seen, being talented or wealthy doesn't erase humanity. It also doesn't give you any more sense. And I'm not just talking about public glow-ups here. If you've had any sort of traumatic experience, it can create arrested development. Like, you go into survival mode. So living a public life, that's not something that's normal. It's something that you need to figure out how to survive. The same thing can be said for any traumatic experience. If you went through something like a parent's divorce, if you had an illness or an exceptionally bad breakup, anything, any sort of PTSD, that's where your emotional development gets stunted. Arrested development, look it up. Think about it. That's why a lot of these people out here are acting like they're 16 years old in their mind, because in their mind they are. They never had the chance to grow up and make the same mistakes that we did in private. Here's where it comes back to us. We're drawn to their chaos because it's a mirror of what we don't want to face on our own. It's easier to scroll TMZ or any other blog rather than sit with our own pain. But our obsession with their downfall says so much more about us than it does about them. And I know this firsthand. After my stroke, when I was recovering, I was so angry and reactive and just acting in ways that I knew were not me. And maybe on the outside I looked like I was okay, but on the inside I was just spiraling from stress. I think that's why I understand these young stars a little bit deeper. I have a compassion for them. Just being emotionally stunted because you have no other choice but to survive. I understand it. And sometimes we're not broken. We're just under pressure that our hearts and our bodies and minds were not built to carry. You don't have to spiral publicly to grow. You don't have to put all your shit out there on Instagram for the world to see all your business. You can rebuild privately. You can rebuild quietly with no cameras, no nothing else. Rebuild Different is about turning inwards, turning that mirror around, noticing your patterns and giving yourself grace, and then choosing differently, because that's where the real growth starts. Celebrities crash out in public because they never got grace, and we're obsessed because we haven't learned to give it to ourselves. So let's start there. Notice those patterns in your life, give yourself grace, choose to rebuild differently. And if you want more real talk about self-sabotage, trauma, and rebuilding, hit follow and join me for the next episode of Rebuild Different. See you next week.